Step into the Oracle Parlor, a podcast where those interested in witchcraft, psychic abilities, ghosts, and all things paranormal come to sip and spill the magical tea. This parlor is a space to grow by maintaining our curiosity over fear when it comes to the spooky and the paranormal. I'm your host, Jenny, otherwise known as Fantasma Witch. I'm a previous visual storytelling artist from animation, now full-time psychic witch, who is getting her MA in psychology to become a licensed therapist. Every other episode, I will share my paranormal experiences, different witchy experiences on a variety of topics, while other episodes, I will be talking with witchy guests of all backgrounds, from writers to artists to well-known social media witches, so we can learn about their practices and how they grew into their personal power. So get cozy and grab your tea. It's time to get mystical. Hello, my magical, mystical besties. Welcome back to another episode of the Oracle Parlor podcast. Today's episode is the unofficial lost episode of the podcast, and you will see why if you are watching the video, because the video quality is quite poor, as this was an older video before I got my fancy new camera. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about what are some of the red flags and green flags of finding the right psychic reader for you. Now, these are not all of the red flags and green flags. Since I have made this video, there have been plenty others that I have thought of. Maybe I will do a part two. Either way, please enjoy this lost episode of the podcast, and I will see you all next time. Hello, my mystical people. Welcome back to the Oracle Parlor podcast. Come in. Today we have a very interesting topic today, and that topic is red and green flags when it comes to psychic readers. And as a psychic reader myself, who has gotten readings from other psychics, I feel like this is a very important topic for everyone. Whether you consider yourself a practitioner or you're someone who's looking to get a reading from another practitioner, this is something that you should definitely be keeping on the forefront of your mind when you are presenting yourself and giving readings to people, as well as when you are going out and looking and vetting for the psychic that's right for you. Now, at the top here, just a quick disclaimer that these topics that we're going to be talking about and these points that I'm going to be talking about are based off of my personal experiences, as well as some of the things some of my fellow readers and my clients have shared with me personally when it comes to spotting a red or a green flag. So this may not resonate with you, and your red flags will probably be different from my red flags, and your green flags will probably be different from my green flags. So if the things that I bring up as flags do not resonate with you, that's totally fine. We don't have to agree on everything. We can agree to disagree. And everybody has their own sets of values and judgments. So use what works for you and know that this can always change. And it can even change for me. Maybe later down the road, I find more red flags or change my red flags to green flags, although I doubt that'll happen here once I get going. So, with all that being said, we talked already a little bit about how psychic is not a bad word and how that's very important for us to take that into consideration. Now, when I made that episode, if you go back and listen to that episode, I do talk about how unfortunately, psychic, the word psychic, as well as the people who practice as a psychic, will often face a lot of scrutiny and judgment just on the word psychic alone, based off of unfortunate past and still present running stereotypes and ideas when it comes to psychics, that they're snake oil salespeople, that they are fake and phonies. And historically, there is a reason for that, which again, I talk about in that episode. So now that we've kind of had that discussion, I do want to talk about like how today that is still very much an issue. Now, the first red flag that I have written here, and I'm just going to kind of go in order and talk a little bit about why I have this as a red flag, and then talk about the green flag opposite of that. The first red flag is when you meet someone who insists that they are exceptional and that they are without a doubt psychic. And when I say insist, I don't mean someone who is proud of their work or their ability as a psychic, or someone who is sharing what they can do. I mean someone who, when they talk about it, it's almost like they're trying to convince you. Because there's a difference between, I'm proud of the work that I do, and I proudly say that I'm a psychic witch. But I'm not going to insist and keep trying to make that a selling point. Because the green flag opposite of that is that a psychic who believes in the work that they're doing and trusts in the work that they're doing will more often rely on their reviews and their testimonials from other people, from the people that they've worked with, from their clients, to do the talking for them. Because real psychics are confident in themselves, even if they have imposter syndrome. I want to make that very clear. I'm not saying that every single psychic is 1,000% confident in themselves as a psychic reader, because it's just not true. Because we all have doubts about ourselves. We can put on this show of being confident and being, in a place where it's like, yeah, I know I can do this. I can say with full confidence, I know I can do pet communication. Does that mean that I don't have moments of anxiety spikes or self-doubt? No, I absolutely do get that. And that's normal. So if you're someone who is a practitioner, who does any kind of psychic development work, and you have moments of doubt, that's normal. It's normal to have self-doubt. The difference is making sure that the doubt doesn't get in the way of your readings, of tapping in. But the point here is that someone who genuinely believes in the work that they're doing is not going to feel the need to convince you of this, because it's almost like they're trying to convince themselves. Because more often than not, the biggest red flag, the root for a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about, doesn't stem from someone who truly believes in the work that they're doing. Those are the snake oil people that call themselves a psychic. Those are the people that we want to be wary of. Because in reality, they probably don't believe in any of this. They probably don't really think that they can do this because they don't believe in it. They don't actually practice it. And they're just trying to, unfortunately, get something from you, usually money. So, this brings us to our next topic, the next red flag. The next red flag is someone who will use fear-based language or concepts to get you to book with them and pay them money. So this can sound like many different things, such as you're cursed, you have a demonic attachment, which, I mean, sounds very Ghost Adventures. I have thoughts and opinions about Ghost Adventures. Okay, we can talk about that another time. Another one, you're being blocked from finding the love of your life or your twin flame or whatever wording they want to use. And there's a difference between someone genuinely being like, "Hey, there's some weird, funky spirits and spirit attachments going on here, that we kind of need to have a discussion about," versus, "Oh, you're cursed, and because you're cursed, you're going to be blocked from any positivity in your life." It's again, it's kind of like they're selling you this idea, and what they're selling you is fear, because they're hoping that through fear, through pressure, in this way, you'll give into the fear and be so scared that you'll be like, oh my gosh, do anything to fix it. This is actually how scam calls and scam artists work outside of using the title of psychic. Because again, if we're talking about these red flags, this is usually because it's somebody who doesn't really practice psychic work, really believe in psychic practices. It's just a scam artist. So I'm going to share with you an example of one time when I was much younger and unfortunately almost got scammed until I kind of put the puzzle pieces together and went, wait a minute, that's not how this works. That's not right. And there's no shame if you're someone who has been scammed because they have a very specific way of doing this to make you get so caught up in fear that you're not thinking straight. Because that's the thing. When we are in an anxious, fear-based mindset, logic goes out the window. And that's not just opinion. That is literally what happens. We cannot think straight. There's actually, it's funny, I'm reading a book right now on neuroscience, and this is something that they talk about, that when you are in a state of anxiety, of fear, of stress, when it's really extremely high levels, there's something that our body does when it releases chemicals that we literally cannot process. We literally cannot hold memory and we cannot think straight. And so this is what scam artists will prey on, is this idea of if I make you scared enough, you'll be willing to do anything. So many years ago, when I was much younger, I had some scam artists call me and convince me through fear tactics, through pressure tactics. They made me believe that uh, someone that I loved, who I could not get a hold of because I couldn't reach their cell phone at the time, was in danger. And I was terrified because they were claiming to be with both the police as well as the hospital, but that if I didn't do this the right way, that I'd get in trouble. So, as you can see, this can be applied to what I am talking about in this form of psychic scammer. If you do not do what I'm talking about, you're going to be in trouble because you're cursed. And if you don't book with me, ooh, it's going to get a lot worse. Consequence. Consequence for your inaction. Consequence for you not listening to them and paying them is a huge red flag. Because when they tell you these things like you're cursed, you're being blocked from finding the love of your life, you're being blocked from positive things, you have this demonic attachment, it's if you don't pay them, there's consequence. You'll still have the demonic attachment. You'll still be blocked from the love of your life as well as other positive things, and you'll still be cursed. That's the consequence. And they will push that idea of like, well, if you don't do this, there's still this consequence. There's this consequence if you don't do it. There's still this idea looming over your head. And this is not to say that these things can't ever happen. However, these things are very, 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 very rare. They're not commonplace. To actually have these things, there'd have to be a lot going on, and there'd have to be a deeper level of working and investigation and interviewing, even to actually find out, are you really cursed? Do you really have an attachment of some kind? Is there really an energetic block? For somebody to just say this out of the blue, especially, which has happened, someone claiming to be a psychic walking up to you and saying, oh, I sense that there's an energy block around your chakra or whatever. And they'll just start using buzzwords like that. And they'll be like, you really need to come to me to do this. And this is what brings me to the next red flag. They will tell you that the only way you can fix your situation is with them. Only what they told you, being, I'm the one who can do this. I'm the only one who can do this. If you don't listen to me, it won't be fixed. That's a huge red flag. Because there are so many beautiful practitioners out in the world that even if you, for say, even if you really did have a block, an energy block in some way that was blocking you from receiving flow in your life, there are plenty of other practitioners who can do that work with you. There are people who work with energy, Reiki, the chakra systems. I could go on, who are more than willing and able to do that work. So for somebody to say, it's my way or the highway, of course they wouldn't say those words, but to have that idea is simply not true. If you have someone telling you, well, you'll never find the love of your life because you're blocked, but only this item that I sell because it's personal to me and it's special because I made it and I da 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 da, and only this will fix it? No. Mm-mm. Especially if they're trying to sell you a service or an item. Absolutely not. It's not true. And sadly, I had a client who told me that their psychic reader, whom they had been seeing for many years, did this to them. And I had to stop them and tell them, you need to get a different psychic reader. And I'm not saying that has to be me, but you need to find someone else. Because essentially, what this psychic reader had told them was the reason why this person, this client of mine, confidentiality, I will not go into details, but the reason why they were having issues in regards to love was for, XYZ reasons of being energetically blocked. And they convinced this person that the only thing that would fix this and bring someone who they used to date back into their life was if they bought this special magical stone from them. Now, what is this special magical stone? Well, first, let me tell you that this special magical stone, uh, first of all, they were charged over $500 for it. Again, I'm not going to get into too many specifics for confidentiality, for privacy reasons. But this psychic had charged them over $500 for this special magical stone. And what made it special, they said they poured their own personal energy and intentions into the stone. So if you are a crystal lover, you're thinking, well, ha ha ha, how big was this crystal? How big did this need to be? Well, unfortunately, this person actually held up the crystal on the screen for me, and I'm gonna hold up my selenite that's about the same size. But essentially, they showed me, if you're watching this video, it's about the size of a quarter, and it was a piece of lapis lazuli. I could buy a piece of lapis lazuli that's about, this is like maybe barely an inch. I could buy a tiny lapis for maybe like $5, $8. And yet this psychic sold this poor person this piece of crystal for an exorbitant amount of money because they had instilled with them this fear that if you don't buy this from me, you'll be alone. You'll be unhappy. This person will never talk to you again. That is literally what they told them. If you do not buy this crystal, this person is not going to talk to you ever again, and they're never going to come back into your life. And I was like, there's no guarantee that no. And not only that, but anybody, anyone, whether they consider themselves a professional psychic practitioner or somebody who's just starting to dabble, anyone can charge a crystal with their own energy and intention. And yet this person was charging them $500+ for it. So what's the opposite of this? What is the green flag of this? Well, first, a psychic reader is going to give you recommendations. They're not going to make themselves the end all be all. And if they do, again, that raises a red flag. So what does that look like? That means giving you topics to research into, maybe even suggesting books to read, or heck, even suggesting you to another reader who's more practiced in a certain area than they are. For example, if you listen to the episode that I did with Mandy of Wild Medium, definitely go check that episode out. It's a lovely episode. In it, Mandy and I were talking about this idea where I personally do not do readings where I connect people with the divine or anything of that nature. And Mandy says in that episode that Mandy doesn't work with angels. So Mandy doesn't do angel readings or connecting to angels. And we both say in that episode that we would never go out of our way to be like, yeah, I can do that. Sure, I'll do that. The only time I would ever, if someone asked me, do you do this thing? And it's not something I typically offer, the only time I would say yes is if I have experience with it, and maybe I just don't have it listed on my website. For example, I do tea leaf readings. And it's listed on my site as an event thing. But if someone were to ask me, hey, can we do like a one-on-one tea leaf reading? Yeah, absolutely. But if someone were to come up to me and be like, hey, can you connect me in with the divine who is assisting me? I'd be like, hey, that's not really my bag. That's not really my specialty. But you know what? I know this amazing practitioner who does exactly that. And then I will send this person that information for that other practitioner. I've had it happen before where people will, and this is something I do in my consultations, where I will, the whole point of my consultations is to provide people the tools to be able to take care of the situations themselves. And sometimes people will come to a consultation, they'll get all the info they need in order to do the things that they need to do. And I will give them book recommendations and I will give them a whole laundry list of here's the step by step on what you can do for your personal situation. And sometimes people will return to me later and say, like, hey, this was lovely. Um, I'd love to book you to maybe clear my home for me, but I don't do home clearings unless I know the person personally. And that's when I would turn around and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't offer home clearings unless I personally know you because me personally, I don't want to go into somebody's home that I don't know very well. And that's just a me thing. Um, Unless I've worked with a client multiple times, I don't go to their location unless I already know them and they're like somebody I can trust, right? But I will always recommend them out and be like, hey, well, if this is something you're looking for that I don't like offer, check this person out and I'll send them to someone else. Another red flag, and this is something I kind of already mentioned, is they'll try to sell you on additional expensive services or goods. Like, for example, you book a reading with them, tarot reading, and during the tarot reading, they tell you, oh, you're energetically blocked, and for an additional $300, I can remove that energetic block for you. Hmm. Now, if you're doing a tarot reading for somebody and you notice that somebody really does have an energetic block, that becomes a situation of like, hey, I'm sensing into this thing that's kind of like, maybe it's not really the topic we're talking about here, but this is something that you should really look into. I provide this service, but if, you can't afford it, that's totally fine. If you want to go to someone else, that's totally fine. But I would do some research into removing that, giving options versus a red flag being, no, 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 there's no other options. I'm telling you that this is the block, only I can see it. Again, see how everything kind of ties back into each other, but in slightly different ways of how they present. So there was a psychic shop that had popped up near Burbank in the area that I live in, California. And this was like maybe a year or two ago. And the outside of the shop was very, very, very stereotype psychic, to the point that it felt really fake. And out of morbid curiosity, I said, you know what, I'm going to look into this psychic. I'm going to go to their website and I'm going to see what they have to offer, who they are. Like maybe they just like the aesthetic of like the, kitschy psychic, which like I get it. Um, No, this was definitely a website of a scam psychic because it had all the red flags that I'm going over and then some. And one of the things that it had was it was talking about how if you book a certain reading with them, you are required to also book a follow-up reading, which is an additional $400 or however much they were charging. Like these absolutely bonkers prices for like a 10-minute like nothing session. Which, if somebody charges $400 for a 10-minute session, that, depending on what it is, fine. I'm not going to judge. You got to make your money. You got to make your money. If you've got the clients who can afford it, fantastic. Good for you. But in this situation, it was very obvious that they were just finding ways to force people to return to them and buy additional services and buy additional goods. And I want to make it perfectly clear that it's one thing if you're giving a client a reading and you run out of time to suggest if you would like to book another reading, if you would like to do a follow-up, that's different versus like the example I gave with the crystal where this person gave them a reading saying, "Oh, you're blocked. And the only thing that will fix it is this really expensive crystal that you can't get anywhere else." Because I've had it happen where people will sit down in a reading with me and they'll ask me a question. I'll pull cards on it. Maybe it's a 10-minute reading at the cafe or something. And when we get to the root of it, I'm like, oh, hey, you really need, like I was saying earlier, maybe like a cord removal, or maybe you need to do some energy work. And I'll explain to them what that is. And I'll tell them, if you're interested in learning more on this, I recommend researching it. If you don't want to research it alone, you can always book a consultation with me, or you can look up people who offer that thing. But there are also times where I'm giving a reading to somebody and we just simply run out of time and the person wants more time. And I tell them, well, if you want to have more time, I'm more than happy to do an additional 10 minutes for this amount of money. That's different. There's a difference between, oops, we ran out of time and I don't have time to talk about this, or oops, this is going into a completely different topic, which is a completely different booking session. Like, for example, if you come for a tarot reading and let's say during that tarot reading, one of your past loved ones comes through and then we run out of time, it's like, okay, you should book a mediumship session. That's a separate thing. It's different from tarot. That's different compared to you go in for a tarot reading and somebody's by the end of it convincing you that you need to buy a completely different thing. A person who is genuine with their practice will do their best not to push you to make another purchase or another booking immediately. They might gently mention, you can always book with me in the future, but they won't push you. There's a difference between those two things. If somebody sits down at the cafe with me and they really love the reading, before they go, I say, hey, feel free to take a business card. If you ever want to book with me again, you can do so online or you can come to the cafe. I'm here every Tuesday. Period. That's it. Just a suggestion. Like, there you go. Just so you know it, just so you have that information in case you're interested. Not oh, well, you really need to book with me again. And I think it would be really good. We did this reading and I think you gained a lot from it. So you should really come back like in a week or two. Like, it's that kind of talking, that fast talking, the pushiness of it. Um, Also kind of prescribing a like return is really bizarre to me. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with sending a follow-up email, or like I said, if someone's walking away saying, hey, I had a pleasure reading for you today. If you'd like to book again, here's my booking link. Hopefully, I'll see you in the future. That's different. But someone who is making it sound like, especially to someone who doesn't know about tarot reading and psychic readings, trying to convince them that the best way to do it is to get a reading every week. The best way to do this is to come back consistently and make sure and don't talk to anybody else. That's problematic. That's an issue. It's kind of like what I was talking about with the scam artists on the phone call earlier. They will be very pushy. They will push you so you don't have time to stop, pause, think for yourself, have a moment to reflect. Because the idea is if they can push, 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 and instill fear and instill this idea of it needs to be done, it needs to be done fast, you have to hurry, it needs to be done right now, or it won't happen again. That's very big red flag. And like I had already said, using fear and lack mentality based tactics to push others into paying more. This kind of falls within the same red flags that I was kind of talking about, but going deeper into it, when they push a time frame and an immediacy. Well, we did this reading today, but if you don't come back for another reading in a week, I don't think I can help you, or I think it's probably going to get so much worse. It is going to get so much worse. That kind of talking is extremely dangerous because, again, it feeds into the fear and the lack mentality of trying to push somebody to do something that they want you to do. And this is why I'm so adamant. This episode as a whole is why I'm so adamant about using your discernment to ask questions. Ask yourself, what does this person want from me? Why are they being insistent? Why are they pushing me to quickly make up my mind? What do they get out of me moving quick? What do they get from me in general? Ask yourself these questions. If you notice that you don't really have time to think or talk to this person, pausing and telling them, hold on, hold on, hold on. Can I get back to you? Don't even ask, can I get back to you? Actually, just be like, I'm gonna have to get back to you. Bye. Because someone who genuinely cares about your well-being, a reader who genuinely cares that you get the guidance and the messages that you need in the moment will never make you feel pressured. And if they do have suggestions for follow-ups, it's made so that way it's left up to you as the client to decide if and when that happens, rather than putting this, again, this like made up time frame of like, if you don't do this by the end of the month, if you don't rebook with me by, or even threatening like, oh, well, I may not be available by that time, so you need to book sooner than that. And, it happens sometimes that like our booking schedules get very full, and I have to tell people like, if someone says, oh, I'd love to do a pet communication session like on Wednesday or 2 days from now, I will tell people, well, my books are getting pretty full. So if you want to do that, make sure, like, if you want to do it ASAP, make sure you book ASAP. But if not, you'll have to wait for an opening when it becomes available. That's different than, again, making these timeframes of like, if you don't do this, it will get worse. Again, going back to the idea of there's consequences for your actions or inactions. Another one is when someone claims, and this one's my big one. This one, before I say what it is, this red flag can be used both as a psychic reader, both in the paranormal, metaphysical community, um, in spirituality in general. This is a huge red flag. And I have definitely unfollowed some pretty famous, pretty popular psychics, mediums, and witches and paranormal investigators because they have done this. And that is someone who claims to know 100% without a doubt, and that anything anyone else says is wrong. Now, be really surprising to hear that people do this, and it's sadly, it does happen. I've seen this happen a lot. Here's the tea. Welcome to the parlor. Here's the tea. What's new? I have seen this happen a lot in the mediumship community, unfortunately, because there is quite a huge disagreement within the mediumship community that can come up, which is whether or not mediums believe in ghosts, whether or not mediums believe in other entities that are non-human, because everybody has their own beliefs. But what happens is it's one thing to debate it and question it and everybody having their own belief system. The problem becomes when someone, for example, we'll keep using the mediumship example, when one of these mediums says, there is okay, hold on. Let me think of a random example because I don't want to like out anyone in particular and I don't want to cause too much of a stir, but um I have heard a very, very popular medium say something around the lines of any other medium who claims that ghosts are real, they're not a real medium because I know without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm like, no, 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 hold on. We don't have any hardcore proof or evidence in the work that we do. I will be the first, I will be the first person to say that. As psychics, as people within the paranormal community, we don't know without a shadow of a doubt. We don't know 100%. One of the biggest things I think that I've heard mediums say is this is exactly what the afterlife is because I have talked to spirits who have told me this. And I'm like, okay, that's beautiful that these spirits have shared with you what their afterlife is like. That doesn't mean it's everyone's afterlife because a lot of the times when they share what that beautiful afterlife is, it tends to fall very much within one religion and one idea. That does not encompass everyone. And that raises some red flags. Same, like I said, for the paranormal community. When a person who works within the paranormal community says ghosts can only communicate through EVP, let's say, this is like a really wild claim, but I'm making it up to give an example. Ghosts can only communicate through EVP, and if anyone uses any other method, such as a Ouija board or some sort of divination method, they're wrong, and they're not really communicating with a ghost. Ah, who says? Where did you get that information from? Who told you that? Why do you believe that? Again, we come back to discernment. Ask questions. No one knows 100%. It's the people who are willing to admit that they don't know, that they don't have the answer, that there's no way for them to say it without a shadow of a doubt. It's those people that are the green flag people. The people who can say, you know, I don't know what the afterlife is like. I've had spirits tell me, but who knows? I don't know um, if ghosts can only communicate through EVP, and that everybody else is wrong because there's no way for me to know for sure. We want to be open-minded. We want to be flexible. We want to be curious. We want to be adaptable. We want to be in a state of childlike curiosity, wonder, and play. So when people say, I know with 100% that this is exactly what it is, without a doubt, like I'm right and everyone else is wrong, that's somebody who's very, 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 very rigid. And typically, if they already have that red flag, they probably have other ones as well. Being closed-minded in the realm of psychic work, mediumship work, paranormal, metaphysical, being closed-minded is the last thing you should be in this kind of community, in this kind of work, in this kind of field. You want to be open-minded. You want to be curious. You want to be like, well, I believe this, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my beliefs will change in a year. Heck, I've been there. We've all been there. Who we were when we were 10 years old is absolutely not who we are when we are 30 years old, or 40 years old, or 50 years old. We're different people because we change. Our experiences shape us, and our beliefs change based off of our experiences, based off of our life circumstances, yada, yada, yada. We change. We're allowed to change. We're allowed to change our opinion. We're allowed to say 1 minute, well, I believe this, but I don't know. Maybe I won't believe it next time. And that's something I try to say in my episodes. I need to say it more, but what I am talking about in these episodes, I may change how I feel and what I believe like a year later, and that's okay. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is so permanent in that way, right? So one of the this one was actually told to me by a fellow practitioner, which I thought was a very good one, and I needed to share it because I have a personal story. One of my fellow practitioners said that a huge red flag for them is when you are approached by someone who says that they have a message for you, but that they need money first in order to give you that message. And this happened to me. And it happened in a TJ Maxx. So, a couple years ago, um, I was shopping at a TJ Maxx, and at the time, I was already a full-time, or you know what? I don't think I was full-time yet. I think I was still dabbling in witchcraft and being a tarot reader. So I hadn't made the full transition yet, but I was already calling myself a witch and a tarot reader. I was already offering services and stuff on the side as like a side business. And I may have still been working in animation at the time, I believe. So this was like more than a couple years ago. This was a while ago. Um, so I was walking around in this TJ Maxx. I was shopping, and this person walks up to me and grabs my arm and says, "Hi, I'm sorry. I don't normally do this, but I had to come talk to you. You see, I can sense spirits and I can see spirit and they communicate with me. And I saw you in the store and you have all these spirits around you and all of this large group of spirits around you. And they have all these messages for you and they're really loud and they keep talking to me. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I was just like, okay, let's see where this goes. I was like, oh, wow, amazing. That's wild. That's really cool that you can do that. And she's like, yes, yes. But they have all these messages for you. And there's just so many of them that are trying to reach you. And I can help you with that. Here's my business card. Book a reading with me and I'll tell you what they say. And I'm like, right. Okay. And she's like, yeah, I feel like you're really attracted to this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I am. And she's like, yeah, I could just sense something about you that you're really open and you're really in tune and you know, and I can help you with that. And I was like, okay, well, thank you. I'll consider that. And I walked away. Now, here's the thing. She had claimed this was the first red flag for me that was like very obvious. The first red flag was she had claimed that she sensed that I was um, possibly sensitive and that I was someone who was very attracted to this kind of stuff and that spirits were attracted to me because of that. She had said something around those lines, right? And she said that she knew that because she psychically sensed it. Now, I guarantee you she did not psychically sense that. She actually read me. Why did she how did she do that? You may be wondering. How do I know she did that? Because I have a very visible tarot card tattoo on me. Because she had said I feel like you'd be very attracted to doing like this kind of stuff. And am I right about that? Like as if she was reading me like psychically. No. Um, I also had a at the time I was wearing different pins. I don't wear them anymore just because I'm not really into pins anymore, but I had on a bunch of different pins that very clearly telegraph that I'm someone who's into spirits, ghosts, paranormal, that I am a witch. Like all of my pins were all very witchy, paranormal stuff. I also have other tattoos, such as like a witch's broom on the back of my leg. All of these tattoos, very visible. I have a triple moon goddess tattoo on the back of my neck, and I believe I was wearing my hair up that day too. So if anyone were to take one look at me, they could probably guess that I would be someone who's into tarot because I have a tarot card tattoo, that I'm into witchy stuff because I have all these witchy pins on me, that I'm into ghosts because I also had ghosty things on me. So that was the first thing that I noticed was she was claiming that she was reading all this stuff within my energy, but I had everything on me physically, very visibly. It's not even a question. So it could make me an easy target for someone who, um, just happens to look like they might be into this stuff. So it'd be easier to talk to me because I'm more open to it, because obviously I'm very into it, because I have all this clothing and tattoos that reflect that. That was the first big red flag that I noticed. And then, of course, the other one is like what my fellow practitioner friend had said, which is the spirits have a message for you, but you have to come and book a reading with me and pay me, which is not great. And I will say the opposite of this can sometimes be unethical and not great either, but that's for another episode. But I have absolutely had that happen to me in public, and uh, very quickly was able to discern this person probably just picked up on who I am through how I present myself. So, all in all, always remember that when it comes to scams, when it comes to people who are not genuine, they don't believe the work that they are doing most of the time. Some people do, and they unfortunately it's rare, but sometimes you will get people who do believe in the work that they do and do genuinely believe in the things that they're saying, um, but still hold money over the client's safety and well-being first. But generally, most psychic scammers work by instilling fear, by creating urgency, by threatening absurd consequences, and to make sure that we are not presenting ourselves, if we are readers and psychics, that we are not going around and doing that, that we're not pushing people to make decisions quickly, that we're not instilling fear. Because there are ways to tell people things that may seem really scary. There are ways to present it in a way that is not so scary, which has to do with being trauma informed, which is a topic we can talk about in another episode. But there are ways to share what may be quote unquote scary information in a way that's much more digestible. And we need to make sure that we're not alluding to any kind of consequence for not working with us, not believing what we're saying. It is up to our clients to make those choices for themselves. It is up to them whether or not they want to continue working with you, whether or not they enjoy the work that you provide and want to follow up. Um, and more importantly, if you are working genuinely, you can lead a horse to water. You can give them the guidance. You can say, yeah, you can follow up with the reading with me, but you can't make them drink. As soon as you try to force the horse to drink, you've got a problem. We don't want to do that. We want to gently guide. We want to offer suggestions. We want to offer multiple routes, multiple avenues, many possibilities, with tenderness, with care, with consideration for our clients' well-being. That's not saying that we can't put ourselves first and that we can't ask for an appropriate amount of money or draw boundaries with clients. Absolutely not. You absolutely should. But what we don't want to do, again, is instill fear and uh, talk about consequences of action or inaction and create urgency for them. So, those are just some of the red flags and a couple green flags when it comes to working with psychic readers and trying to kind of suss out who may not be as genuine with their workings, who may not actually believe what they're doing. So, thank you, like always, for joining me in the parlor today. I hope that this gave you some things to think about, whether you're a practitioner or someone who looks into practitioners for readings. I hope this gave you some clear insights, and I hope it resonated. Thank you so much for joining me in the parlor for this episode. If you want more psychic magical tips, make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Fantasma Witch. FANTASMAWITCH. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon, where I have a Discord community. I do Q&As, live classes, workshops, and more. To book a reading or consultation directly with me, you can go to my website, www.phantasmawitch.com. All of these links can be found in the episode description. And please, if you enjoyed this show, make sure you go leave a rating, leave a review, share it with others. It really helps the show to reach new listeners if you take a moment to do that, and it is sincerely appreciated. Shout out to the artist Cat Lines, who helped me to redesign the podcast logo to the beautiful magical teacup you see today. See you, mystical friends, in the parlor next time.